All right, everybody, we're going to do a quick review of Chapter 4 of the Autobiography of Malcolm X as told to Alex Haley. The title of Chapter 4 is Laura. The chapter begins describing the slang that was used at the time to identify what they called a square. So Malcolm is getting comfortable with the language of Boston at this time. Malcolm says that he can't remember when he learned, but dancing was the thing to do at the time. Most popular form was called Lindy hopping. He says, quote, once he got enough weed and liquor in his system combined with the music, his African instincts took over, end quote. Malcolm, the girls considered Malcolm a, quote, hard-working dancer. He eventually quit working at the Roseland Ballroom, and he found out he had A1 credit. A1 credit. This is the same place that he went to in Chapter 3. He says he went and got his second zoot suit. This one is shark skin gray, and he got his first barbershop conch. Malcolm went down to the Roseland Ballroom to dance, and Malcolm was only 15 at the time, but he looked 21. He says, quote, he never missed a Roseland Lindy hop as long as he stayed in Boston. He would always dance with random girls. That's something that he talks about as well. But he says his best dance partner was a girl named Laura, and that's where the title comes from. When Malcolm quit shoe shining at the ballroom, Ella helped him find a job at the local drugstore. He was a soda fountain clerk. He says his job was in the Hill, and Malcolm didn't like the Hill Negroes. He felt that they were the fancy bourgeoisie Negroes. Ella wanted Malcolm to meet someone from the Hill, someone she considered a nice girl. The Hill people annoyed Malcolm so much that he was about to quit his job. He says that, quote, the accent's so phonied up that if you just heard them, you wouldn't even know they were Negroes, end quote. Malcolm says how he couldn't wait until 8 o'clock to go home, have some of Ella's food, get his zoot suit, and head out with his friends to dance or get high. He said he needed relief from being around those quote-unquote hill clowns. Laura lived across from the drugstore that he worked at. Malcolm says that he made banana splits for 6 weeks straight. Malcolm wasn't in school at this time. Malcolm says that Laura was, quote, the only girl that came in there and acted any way friendly and natural, end quote. He felt that the other Hill girls were trying to be fancy. Malcolm liked that Laura always had books, and 2 books that he talks about are Latin and algebra. He liked that she didn't want to be anybody but herself, and he considered her genuine. Malcolm and Laura, I guess over time they start to get close. Laura talked about Lindy hopping one day, and Malcolm invited her down to the ballroom. Malcolm introduced Laura to Ella, and they became the best of friends. They talk about how they became really close friends in the amount of time that it took Malcolm to get changed into his suit. Once they got to the ballroom, he says, halfway through the first song, he figured out how Laura danced. He said, quote, I nearly just think a maneuver and she'd respond. His perfect partner, end quote. She was light-handed and strong. And they talk about Showtime starting and the veteran dancers dancing. And Malcolm danced with them, but Laura wasn't as confident at this time. And that's the end of the first date. Malcolm took Laura back to Roseland Ballroom later. And Laura and Malcolm became fan favorites. Like, they were some of the best dancers that night. So a crowd kind of jumps on them, and they kind of get separated for a second, and Malcolm sees a white blonde at the dance, and he calls her Sophia. He describes her as young. She had nice clothes. She had a nice car. She looked like she was well taken care of. He danced with the white girl, and he left Laura. He basically looked Laura in the face, and he says, quote, I guess Laura saw what there was to see in Sophia's face and mind, end quote. He danced with Sophia, and after that he takes Laura home, but he comes back to spend more time with Sophia. After that, he says he paraded Sophia all over Roxbury. He says, quote, Sophia loved Negroes and the Negro man loved her, end quote. Said that Malcolm and Sophia were hooked on each other. He says he wasn't even hanging around with Shorty that much. He said that his relationship with Sophia helped him to mature in the eyes of the community. Him being with a young, attractive white woman who was well taken care of and wasn't a prostitute, that gave Malcolm some respect in the eyes of the elders of the community. And he's 16 at this time. Laura never came back to the drugstore. He said the next time he saw her, she was looking bad and she was fairly promiscuous. Ella didn't like that Malcolm was with Sophia. Malcolm quits the drugstore and he moved in with Shorty. He became a busboy at a porterhouse. One day he's coming in late and he's expecting to get fired, but that day happens to be Pearl Harbor, which was December 7th, 1941. And that'd be the end of chapter 4, I'm sorry. Make sure you share this video if you like what you heard. Visit malcolmxfoundation.org if you'd like to make a donation. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. And other than that, I'll see y'all chapter 5. Thank you.